Hi, welcome back. I have this beautiful handspun yarn that I finished a couple months ago, and it's been sitting on my desk calling to me. What are you going to make with me? I want to be a shawl. Well, what am I going to do? On this episode, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, show you some of my plans, and give you a few tips on how to use handspun yarn. Let's But first, I'm Liz, an avid knitter, crocheter, and spinner, and I love all things fiber and yarn. If you are like that too, please subscribe down below. I'm trying to build a community of like minded people to share our ideas and have a lot of fun together. Thank you. This is Shadow. She wants to also be a YouTube star, so she's refusing to move. Anyway, yes, I spun this yarn. Actually, I got it for my birthday, and I was looking for fiber that I could mix with this greenish salmon orange yarn. And I just was shopping. I fell in love with these colors. I thought that they might work. So I spun them up, set them next to that yarn, and neither of them were a match. And I was like, oh man. So they've sat in my bucket behind me, waiting to either be listed on my shop or to be used. And I love both of these colors so much um, that I thought, wow, they look really, really great together. As they sat on my shelf, I really thought they looked really great together. And then I started thinking, I think one more color is needed. And so that's when I realized I had some of this light yellow, also uh, some leftover fiber from some of the other projects I was doing. So I spun that up as well. And so I have this beautiful, you put them together like this. Imagine going from dark to orangey to yellow. I'm thinking sunrise. And so I have enough to make quite a large shawl. I have about 8 ounces of these two, and then this little ball of this. Um, and so I started drawing in my book. If y'all haven't done this already, uh, start a little notebook. I keep my uh, swatches in here, although I think I might have to keep them in a different bag. They're getting kind of bunched up. And I write my own patterns in here for ideas that I have. And so for this one, I want to fade from the dark. So I'm going to start out in a stockinette stitch for the dark. I'm going to do one whole ball of the stockinette stitch in the dark. And then what I'm going to do is do stripes for another whole ball of this and this. So quite a large section of stripe. And then I'm still on the fence, but my original idea was to take this ball and do a section of lace, a very simple lace. Um, I'm kind of new at designing my own patterns, so I'm not sure what'll happen when I get to the increases. Um, I haven't thought about that yet. I don't know what I'll do. And then at the very end, once this is gone, I might do like 2 or 3 stripes to blend this in. And at the very end, this will be kind of like maybe like an inch edging and then some type of decorative bind off. I did some Googling and really couldn't come up with really pretty knit bind offs, like either like some triangles or some shells like there are in crochet. But then I was kind of thinking about it this morning, and I was like, what about some type of like picot bind off? So that's the idea so far, and I'm keeping my notes as I go. I've made lots of changes, and yeah. I'm excited. Probably not the project I wanted to start right now, considering that I have a class coming up in a month. I don't know that I'll be able to finish this in 2 weeks, but that's my hope, actually, so that I can use these same needles for the class that's coming up. But we'll see. So, tips with using hand spun yarn. As you can see, I've already kind of started last night, and you can see that it already has a lot of character and personality to it already. Let's see. Um, it's got the variations in colors, but also the variations in the texture. Um, Part of that is because this is slightly underspun. I tend to do this with my single plies. Also, this particular ball, I had trouble really drafting it well, and so I did get these bubbles of underspun yarn. I was kind of frustrated about. Still need some more practice, but at the same time, I think as long as I'm slightly gentle with those sections and I knit them, they should, as I wear and it sits into that position, they'll just kind of felt together and it should be fine. Um, the interesting thing when I spun this one up, it also has a few underspun sections, so they're kind of spun very similarly. So tip number one, you gotta pick sections of you got to pick patterns of yarn, patterns for knitting or crocheting that have little to no texture. And the reason I say this is I've noticed that my hand spun yarns already have a lot of character and personality. And even with my cowl that I did with the cables and the hand spun, they compete with each other. And so I find that when I'm doing patterns, picking things that have like just a little texture to them or maybe a fancier stitch but not that much of it, um, kind of on the simple side because you really want the hand spun yarn to shine through at the end of the day. That's where a lot of the work went into. um, Hand spun yarns have this super unique color and they have unique texture, and you really want that to shine in your work. And so I try to choose patterns that have very few textured stitches in them, and they're very simple, so they can make the yarn shine. Tip number two is you want to treat your handspun yarn just like regular yarn when you're knitting it. No special considerations. I do. I'm very gentle at the underspun parts, but if you're a better spinner than me and you don't have any underspun parts, it's just like regular yarn. Treat it like regular yarn. Um, my third tip is to make sure that you choose the appropriate needle size. So that might mean swatching, but it also might mean that before you even start a swatch, size up on your needle. Um, because of the texture that I talked about, handspun yarn varies in its thickness. And you want to pick a needle size that is going to be appropriate for the slightly larger end diameter of the yarn that you're using, the slightly larger gauge of yarn. Um, so you can see I have some really thin ones, but I chose a size 6. Um, I meant for this to be kind of like a fingering weight, which would be recommended between a US 2 or US 4. But I actually sized up to a US 6. One, I like the feel of it. 10 and 6 are kind of my favorite go-to sizes. Um, but also it accommodates, and as you can see, I actually have some right here. It accommodates those larger stitches, but also doesn't look so bad in those smaller stitches. And it creates a more even texture. So you'll be happier with the end product, I feel, if you size up on that needle gauge. So there you go. 3 tips and a little bit of background into my hand spinning. And I hope that if you're interested in using hand spun yarn, you can visit my shop. I do have some for sale. Also, if you've ever used hand spun yarn below, I want to hear about your experience. You can comment in the comments down below, please do. And then I just want to end today with a little bit of knitting. So get your knitting, get your coffee and or tea, and just sit down and knit with me for a little bit.